Hey there everybody, Brett from Love Bats and the Belfry back for another video and another Twilight Zone review. Last night, my wife and I just decided on a whim, we were just wanting to watch a VHS tape, and this is actually one of hers, Kelly, was like, yeah, we should watch the one, VHS tape I have of the Twilight Zone, and it has 2 episodes on this tape, and that's Nightmare at 20,000 Feet and the Odyssey of Flight 33. And I was stoked to see this on VHS. For some reason, whenever I go back and put on a VHS tape, I don't know. It's a whole different experience. I love just the aesthetic of a VHS tape, the look of it, how different it looks from like crystal clear stuff like nowadays and on DVD and Blu-ray, and that's something in and of itself to be appreciated. But going back and watching VHS tapes is pretty cool, and this is, these 2 pretty classic episodes. I mean, they are considered classics. I can at least vouch for Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. Full disclosure, I've actually never seen the Odyssey of Flight 33 until last night, but we're going to get into those. So, obviously, with Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, it is a classic episode. A lot of people would consider it among one of their favorites. I put it as an honorable mention in my top 10 Twilight Zone episodes video on this channel. The reason it's not in my top 10 is just because it doesn't really strike a chord with me. I don't think it's among the best, but it is pretty up there as far as quality of Twilight Zone. Now, most people who have seen the Twilight Zone may have seen this episode. It's one of the most popular ones. And as far as the creature, that's in the episode Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, that is the most famous thing. It's a creature that definitely stands out and sticks with you. I think anyone to the younger people who haven't really watched the Twilight Zone, this is probably, the creature might make you laugh and be like, why were people scared of this? Trust me, this episode scared the crap out of a lot of people, myself included, when I was a kid. And, I remember growing up just watching the Sci-Fi Channel, and they always had the Twilight Zone marathons, New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, type thing. And I was always watching those. And whenever Nightmare at 20,000 Feet came on, I was always terrified to see the monster on the wing of the airplane. But if you are new and don't know, much about the episode, but Nightmare at 20,000 Feet has William Shatner in it, pre-Star Trek fame, and he plays a guy who spent 6 months in a sanitarium from a nervous breakdown. He was a salesman. Basically, the only detail you're really given is just he just had a nervous breakdown, and his wife was fully there to support him, and it's the first time he's taking a flight, in 6 months. And of course he's really nervous to get on this plane. His wife tries to reassure him that everything is fine. And even him himself getting on the plane acts like everything is fine and, we'll be alright and type thing. But you notice is really early on that there's this creature that's just outside the plane on the wing, and it starts tearing up this one part of the wing where the engine is, basically. And he's the only one seeing this happen, and so he's starting to cause a lot of worry onto the plane and everything. And so his wife is also weirded out, and you can tell she's really on his side, which is a nice thing to see in this. The wife is worried about everyone else on the plane, but she is also worried for her husband. And so throughout the episode is just William Shatner's character just trying to convince everybody that there's this thing on the plane and it's not in his head. It really is real. But of course, knowing the backstory of him, people are going to think that, he's just having an episode or something like that. And so, yeah, later in the episode, he finds a police officer asleep on the plane. He kind of sneaks back, he's going to the bathroom, and he pretends just very nonchalantly to take this guy's gun off his holster, and he's successful because the end of the episode, he's like basically, firing at this creature thing. But yeah, it's a classic episode. I think it's still great to this day. I think the creature is the only role aspect of the episode that hasn't held up the best. Creature, he just looks kind of goofy now, and it's honestly hilarious. Like what used to scare us, way back in the day. Now we can watch and be like, oh, that didn't age the best. That is the only aspect of Nightmare at 20,000 Feet where I'm like, okay, that's the only thing I could see them redoing. And I know they did that for the Jordan Peele Twilight Zone reboot that happened a number of years ago, but I really didn't hear all that great things about it. I heard it was pretty mediocre at best. So, but I do know they redid this episode, but they called it Nightmare at 30,000 Feet or something. But I have no desire to really watch that, because it's this is still so good and pulls it off so well. The only aspect is the creature doesn't look the best, but it's still an enjoyable episode. I think anyone can watch this and still be, on edge and still really care about the character. And yeah, I still think it holds up in that regard. So that was a very enjoyable experience to watch it on this VHS tape. And yeah, let's get into the second episode. The first time I ever watched Odyssey of Flight 33. And I know that this episode has a good reputation to it as well. But Odyssey of Flight 33, this is basically the airplane tape. I just realized that, of the Twilight Zone double feature here. It's like the airplane episodes. But Odyssey of Flight 33 is about, of course, a flight that's just on its way to New York. And something really strange happens in the middle of it. The pilot and the other people in the cockpit of the plane notice that the plane is picking up a ridiculous amount of speed, and it's not by their own doing. And it gets to a certain point that halfway through the episode, they break the sound barrier, but they also go back in time. And yeah, this is one that is a fascinating concept. And I can see some watching this episode and be like, oh, it's nothing special. I can see both sides of the spectrum here, where, the way that the episode plays out, its pacing, you're going through a good bit of the episode where something's just not quite right, but nothing's really happened. And I think it's middle commercial break where, it fades to black. And then, of course, if this was on TV, it would go to a commercial. But right when that happens, they find out that they're back in time to the prehistoric age, where they're looking out the window and people in the cockpit are like, what? How could this be? There's no way. And they're seeing dinosaurs. And it does do a little portion of the episode where it shows this guy who was in the army or the Marines, who's wearing one of the outfits, and then this older lady that is being a total chatterbox to him. That's the most that this episode does as far as showing the passengers in the plane on establishing them, at least. I mean, because throughout the episode we're focused on everyone in the cockpit. You have a couple of moments with the flight attendants. These two flight attendants, will come back periodically. It's Captain, you're going to have to make an announcement, because I have 3 people that are freaking out and are about to barge into this cockpit area, and I can't hold them off, type thing. And I will say, I mean, it is very engaging as far as the captain and everybody in the cockpit, and seeing just their natural reactions to things slowly going downhill, and everyone being I don't know what's happening here, but this is freaking me out. And so towards the end of the episode, after they're trying to the captain or the pilot is he's I'm going to try to go back the same way we came, break the sound barrier, see if we can get back to our time that way. And so what it seems like they do at a certain point, and they see New York, they see, certain parts of the city, and then, pilot makes an announcement, and then they quickly realize they see something. I forget exactly what it was, but it's like a landmark that was only the case that if it was back in like 1939. So they noticed this at the end of the episode. And yeah, it's they basically come to realization that they're like, okay, we traveled back forward in time, but we're only in 1939 and not in 1961 when this, is what the current time was when this episode came out. So yeah, they're freaking out. And the thing that is interesting about this episode is, one thing I love about it is, like, I don't think I've seen a Twilight Zone episode that has such an open-ended ending. Because, like, before you know it, like, the episode is ending, you're like, wait, they haven't gotten back to their current time. They're still in 1939. And, like, Rod Serling's, narration comes over, and you're like, oh, they're, like, stuck in this time. And they kind of leave it up to interpretation on whether you think they are going to get back to their normal time, or they're going to be stuck, like, in this, this specific time that isn't theirs. And so, yeah, I mean, that is something that I enjoyed about this episode, was it's like, I thought there was like a lot more to go with the episode, and it just kind of ends, and you're like, all right, I guess I can make up my own ending if I want. But I mean, in a way, I think that's kind of the genius of, this episode, is that it doesn't really give you an ending. Like, you're kind of just like the unknown of things. I don't know, but I really love that about it. And yeah, Odyssey of Flight 33, like, it's definitely one of those episodes. I think it's not going to hit you at least immediately. At least to me, it didn't. But now, like, taking some time to think about it, it really is, it's now sticking with me a lot more. So I don't know, maybe that will have the effect on you, that if you've never seen the Odyssey of Flight 33 episode. But yeah, that's going to do it here for my VHS review of, I guess, the airplane episodes of this Twilight Zone VHS tape. But just kind of wanted to come on and, say a few things about it. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I'm sure most people have a lot to say about Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. But yeah, I'd love to hear your opinion on these episodes. I'm going to wrap it up there. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up. It's greatly appreciated. It shows that, people that are watching this channel are enjoying what I'm doing. I want to thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you in a future video. Bye.